people discovered something strange, as if there was something in the river in front of them. At this moment, the curious owl threw a can into the water, and unexpectedly, it was instantly eaten by an unknown creature. People happily discussed, saying it must be a dolphin playing with humans. After saying that, everyone simultaneously threw their food and drinks down. Little did they know, this curiosity killed the cat idea was about to make them pay with their lives. The price to be paid. The next second, a dude looked into the distance and was stunned. A huge monster, resembling both a fish and a lizard, was rushing towards the people. People witnessing the scene began to frantically flee for their lives. Those who couldn't escape were flung tens of meters away. The monster then charged into the crowded square, and seeing so many prey, its eyes turned red. At this moment, a girl was sitting on the grass, still intently listening to the old man's movie story, completely unaware of the approaching danger. By the time she realized, it was already too late. For a moment, the entire square was in chaos, filled with fear and wailing. At this time, a group of people scrambled to hide inside the container house, leaving only one woman locked inside. Just before the monster charged up, the woman jumped down the stairs, saving her life. But looking back, it was tragic inside the container house. The monster charged in and ran amok, hunting for food without restraint. As the other side of the container house's door was tightly locked with chains, the people inside started desperately shouting through the door crack. At this moment, the woman realized her son was still inside, and driven by the urgency to save her child, she pleaded for Idu's help. With the assistance of a foreign friend, Idu managed to break open the door lock, rescuing the remaining people inside. Next, the foreign friend, with a burst of energy, lifted a floor tile and threw it at the monster, but it had no effect on the monster. Then, with the assistance of Idu, they lifted a stone pedestal and hurled it at the monster. The monster felt provoked and charged towards the two. At this moment, Idu had a quick idea and crawled under a car, while the foreign friend wasn't so fortunate and was directly stepped on by the monster in imminent danger. At this moment, Idu, to rescue the other person, used all his strength and picked up a stone to smash it at the monster again. This time, he successfully injured the monster's tail. The monster let out a painful cry and started relentlessly chasing Idu. During the run, Idu pulled his daughter to escape the scene. In the tense chaos, they tripped and fell. After standing up, Idu fumbled for his daughter's hand and ran some distance. When he looked back, he realized something was wrong. He was holding someone else's daughter. Idu was completely dumbfounded, and in this dramatic moment, he could only watch helplessly as his daughter was taken by the monster. The monster leaped into the Han River, swimming to the opposite side with the daughter. Then it gradually submerged, disappearing without a trace, leaving the father, Idu, desperately screaming, but to no avail. While Idu was still immersed in the sorrow of losing his daughter Hyun-suk, I received a message to evacuate quickly. Then the Korean military took over and divided the waters around the Han River into the control area. At night, all the families of the victims gathered together, mourning the lost loved ones. Looking at the photos of those whose fate is uncertain, the second uncle, aunt and grandpa's family of 4 were in grief. Desperate. Immediately after, the situation worsened. Anyone present at the Riverside event had to be placed in isolation. It turned out that this time, the monster did not just attack humans, causing casualties. That morning, the person rescuing people with Idu was an American officer. In the fight with the monster, he got injured, and a part of his body was infected with some unknown, terrible virus. As a result, Idu's family members were all quarantined. Late at night, Idu was too hungry to sleep, so he sneaked around to find a can. At this moment, his phone suddenly vibrated. Idu answered the call, and a burst of noise came through from the other end. However, Idu could make out his daughter Hyun-suk's voice. Hyun-suk told Idu that her phone was running out of battery, and that she was trapped in a very large and deep sewer. Idu anxiously asked his daughter for her exact location, and after she finished talking, there was no sound on the other end. Upon hearing that his daughter was still alive, Idu was overjoyed. Then Idu called the police, attempting to seek their help, but the police just listened with an indifferent expression, convinced that Idu was just spouting nonsense. What's more ironic is that Uncle asked the police, "Can't you just use the call record to locate the position?" But the police said, after their unsuccessful plea for help, they could only plan to leave her and search for and rescue Xuanshu themselves. But just as the operation began, Idu's bright yellow hair gave them away. Their escape plan discovered, they quickly fled, got into the car that was waiting for them, and left. Father Park also spent all his savings to buy rescue equipment, and 3 on the black market. The shotgun quickly made the family's wanted notice go online, but even so, it couldn't stop them from rescuing their loved ones. Finally, with their excellent acting skills, they disguised themselves as disinfection workers and successfully passed through the checkpoint. Then, based on what Xuanshu said, as long as it was a very large and deep sewer, the family would conduct a thorough search. In this way, they didn't know how much time had passed, and still hadn't. There was a slight progress. The family was tired, cold, and hungry, utterly exhausted. So they planned to return to their small family store to get something to eat, replenish their energy, and then continue looking for Xuanshu. At this moment, the family begins to imagine the scene of eating with Xuanshu. The family habitually takes turns feeding Xuanshu, creating a warm and joyful atmosphere. In stark contrast, the shot shifts to Xuanshu in a dark, damp environment, cold and hungry, with cold bodies nearby. Xuanshu fantasizes about how wonderful it would be to really be with her family. At this moment, she suddenly heard the sound of the monster returning to the nest, so she quickly pretended to lie motionless on the ground. Fortunately, the monster didn't notice her and left the nest after dropping off its recently captured prey. Luckily, this time a little boy survived. Just as Hyun-suk was about to check the boy's injuries, unexpectedly, the predator heard the noise and returned. Fortunately, Hyun-suk held the boy tightly and lay on the ground. Can she deceive the monster again this time? The man discovered a bizarre thing. Through the crack of the door, he saw a monster looking down on him. At this moment, Old Park carefully picked up the shotgun and aimed at the monster through the crack.
With the gunshot, the enraged creature charged at them. Using all of its strength, it directly attacked the Park family's small store.
Overturned. At this moment, Old Park seized the opportunity, shot and drove the creature back. When Old Park and the family crawled outside, they found the creature lying right in front of them. Upon seeing it, his second son, Namil, immediately fired at the creature, not expecting. Running was very cunning. It just pretended to be dead to deceive them. Then the family began to relentlessly chase the monster, determined to eliminate it for Uncle Xuan. The sound of gunfire for revenge was also discovered by the patrolling guards who chased after them. The monster took this opportunity to jump straight into the water. Seeing the shadow gradually approaching them, Old Pooh instructed, the children were sent away first, taking this chance to fight the monster. He took the hunting gun from Ado with its last bullet, resolutely deciding to have a life and death showdown with the monster. But just as the monster rushed ashore and Old Pooh loaded the shotgun, he pulled the trigger, only to find there were no bullets. It turned out Hadu had fired 4 shots but had miscounted one. At this moment, Old Pooh faced reality calmly. A high wave to the children, telling them to leave and trusting them with the task of finding his granddaughter. He was then knocked to the ground by the monster. The children saw their father being grabbed by the monster again and suddenly thrown down the riverbank. Then it turned around and disappeared into the Han River. Watching their father die because of them, Adu was in deep sorrow, was inconsolable. But the patrolling guards were about to arrive, so Adu told his younger brother and sister to leave and find Uncle Xuan. He picked up a piece of newspaper to cover his father's face, wanting to turn away, but feeling reluctant to leave his father. In the end, Adu was taken back. Namji and Namju, who had escaped, also got separated. At this moment, Nanyi thought of her college classmate, who works at a certain communications company, hoping to locate Xuan Shu with her classmate's help. The classmate agreed to help Nanyi. The two of them took advantage of the night to sneak into the company, but to access the information, they needed the Patriarch's authorization password. The classmate then went to the Patriarch's office, not expecting that the police had already set up an ambush inside. It turned out the classmate had already betrayed Nanyi for the reward money. Seeing that the classmate had not come out for so long, Nanyi just happened to discover a secret in front of him. Waya, and then took a chance to try it. Unexpectedly, they successfully accessed and found Uncle Xuan's location. Before Nanyi could celebrate, the police surrounded them. At this moment, Nanyi remained calm, confirmed Uncle Xuan's location once more, and then cleverly made a show. The circuit device immediately caused a short circuit in the room, plunging it into darkness. Nanyi seized the opportunity to quietly slip outside while all the police were trapped inside. Before leaving the room, the friend surprisingly gave him a thumbs-up gesture. It turns out the friend ultimately followed his heart and helped Nanyi, assisting her in successfully evading the police pursuit. After escaping the building, facing police cars blocking the front and back, Nanyi took the risky move of jumping down from the bridge, ultimately shaking off the police chase. Enduring the physical pain, she sent Uncle Xuan's location to her brother and sister, then fainted. After being separated from Nanju and Nanyi, he successfully rested for a night under the bridge. Then he avoided the layers of patrol personnel and replenished his energy at the small shop, charged his powered-off phone, and only then received Uncle Xuan's location, so he was the first to go rescue Uncle Xuan. Headed on journey, Nanju arrived at Winchi Bridge. Just as she approached, she came face to face with the monster as she was about to draw her bow with the incredibly fast monster. Knocked over, he fell into a narrow pit nearby. Fortunately, the tunnel was too small, and the monster, being large, couldn't reach Namju. The unconscious Namju thus narrowly escaped him. Fate! On the other side of the scene, Adu also learned about Uncle Xuan's location. However, when he tried to explain it to the doctor completely ignored him, and even insisted that the virus had already reached Adu's head, forcibly performing head surgery on him. Ultimately, driven by the urge to save his daughter, Adu hijacked the staff members and drove away, heading towards his daughter's loca. To move quickly. As for Nanyi waking up from her slumber and with the help of the wandering uncle, they made Molotov cocktails and then hurriedly headed towards Yuanqi Bridge. The scene shifts back to Uncle Xuan, who notices that both he and the boy are becoming weaker. They cannot wait for rescue and must find a way to save themselves. He gathered the clothes he could use, tied them together, and with all his strength tried to hang them on the iron net above. Despairingly, the clothes hung but was hung up, but it was still far too short to reach the bottom, and he had no way to grab it even if he jumped. Just as Uncle Xuan was struggling with what to do, an opportunity presented itself right in front of him. After the monster had its fill, it came down to rest. Uncle Xuan, wanting to check if the monster had fallen asleep, picked up a can and threw it at the monster, but the noise didn't elicit any response from it. Uncle Xuan then came up with a bold idea. He reassured the boy to stay put and not move, promising that he would go out and find someone to rescue the boy. As soon as Uncle Xuan stopped speaking, he stepped onto the monster's back and securely grabbed the clothes. Just when he thought he was successful, unexpectedly, the monster's tail wrapped around Uncle Xuan and gently placed him back on the ground. The monster seemed to be provoking him, saying, "With me here, you will never escape from this place." At this moment, the boy came out of the cave, and upon seeing this scene, he was so frightened that he wet his pants. To protect the boy, he re-entered the cave. Uncle Xuan ran back desperately but ended up being caught by the monster. The government decided to completely eliminate the monster, so they deployed biochemical weapons in the Han River. This action caused significant public dissatisfaction, leading to large-scale protests along the Han River. The monster, upon seeing so many prey, became as if it had received an adrenaline rush, heading towards the dense crowd of people. At this moment, a couple marching in the protest was the first to spot the monster. The police started shooting at it, and the young man desperately rushed to stop them from firing, fearing they might accidentally harm the monster's belly. Found his daughter inside and forcefully pulled her out. At this moment, Uncle Xuan still held the boy in his arms, and upon seeing that Uncle Xuan showed no signs of life, Adu was suddenly wailing bitterly. At this moment, Adu gradually regained his senses, determined to make the murderer who killed his daughter pay with blood. Then Nanyi threw a Molotov cocktail at the monster, pursuing all the way, but was all blocked by the monster. At the critical moment, it was still the homeless uncle who stepped forward. He quietly approached the top of the creature and poured all the fuel onto the monster. Nanyi seized the opportunity and took out the last Molotov cocktail, aiming at the monster. As he threw the Molotov cocktail at the creature, it slipped from his hand and fell behind him. Just as Nanyi was feeling annoyed, an exciting scene unfolded. A professional archer protagonist came, dipping the arrowhead in flames, drew and released, accurately hitting the monster's eye. Suddenly, the monster's entire body